right, so the second assignment is going to be the title sequence. That is slightly misleading because you've got other options than just necessarily a title sequence. I guess that's kind of just the easiest thing to call it. So what I mean by that is, I'm sure everyone who's ever seen a movie or a TV show know that there's some sort of title card or some sort of animation that accompanies the start of that piece of media. And these are a pretty popular sort of thing. I mean, obviously any sort of show or movie, even stuff that aren't necessarily fall into those two categories, they have this sort of animation, which means there's kind of a necessity for this stuff to be made, which means that it employs artists like ourselves to create this content. So with all that being said, let's just watch a couple examples of some of these. Basically, all of these are going to show some sort of like wording or the show's name or maybe a logo when we get into some of the sports stuff, but they all kind of follow the same kind of formula. It's some amount of words that we can recreate in 3D and do a small either camera animation or animate the text itself. So there's a lot of room for interpretation when it comes to this assignment. You can pick anything that would be classroom appropriate as far as branding. Doesn't have to necessarily be a TV show or a movie. Again, sports networks and all that, this is the same. It's the same thing. It's just for a different client. A good opportunity for sound effects and all that fun stuff if you're into that. All the team logos and brands and companies like this. The NFL is a brand. It's a company, kind of. So as opposed to this necessarily being a word, it's more of a logo. But there is a kind of a process for finding this. So if I wanted to jump on Google Images, I could type in NFL logo, and then if I go to images, so I could just find like one of these and I could bring it into Illustrator and like trace it out if I wanted to. I'm just showing an NFL example. You could pick pretty much, like I said, anything that would be classroom appropriate, any sort of brand or event, kind of anything that you can think of that has some sort of fitting theme when it comes to animating either a logo or some sort of 3D type. So if I just jump into Cinema 4D real fast, we can, if this opens, oh, okay. It's taking its sweet time. I guess in the meantime, I will show you the one that I am going to do. This is a movie that's coming out later this year that I'm excited for. That's scary. But so just this text and how these letters kind of fade in. So that's what I'm going to be recreating. So I'm going to show you how to, basically what my process would be for this. And for those of you who know After Effects, this is one of the assignments that gives you a little bit of opportunity to flex that skill. Or even just Photoshop. We can see there's some sort of like dust particles, something that's creating this kind of weird ambience. Maybe it's some sort of mysterious liquid or something that's like on a pane of glass near this type. Who knows what this stuff is, but I could use like a brush or find some sort of texture in Photoshop, and I could use that as an asset when it comes to After Effects. I know we very minimally used After Effects to render out the desk render. We basically just imported it and then exported it. We didn't really do too much to it. In my case, that example will be a little bit different. I'll spend just a little bit more effort inside of After Effects, but that's not necessarily required for all of you. So I think hopefully Cinema 4D will be open. at this point. So what I'm going to do is, if I was you guys and I was going to recreate maybe something like this Gotham intro, and feel free to copy one of these examples as best as you can. If you maybe don't watch TV, if you aren't familiar with really what these kind of title sequences are like, by all means, pick one of these examples that I've shown and just try your best to recreate that. One of the things that I learned when I took an online design course, and one of the little phrases, kind of nuggets of information that I found really useful when I was starting out was, you should practice your competency before you practice your originality. And what I mean by that is you should be able to hit all the buttons and produce content before before you go out into the world and are forced to make stuff for the first time. Like, you should be familiar enough with the skills to replicate something. If you can see it, it's a good skill to be able to recreate what you see. So what I would do would go to the good old YouTube to MP4, and what you can do with a website like this, if you spell it right, is you can copy a link like this and paste it, and hopefully this one is not the one that I know. Hello, YouTube to MP4. So let's find the one that I know. This one. Download MP4. So that might be not what we want. So this is what we want. So much like we used reference images of our desks and stuff like that, if you were trying to recreate specific objects in your desk scene, one of the things that I harp on a lot as an artist is finding reference. So if you want to use something like this as your reference in terms of how to animate it and whatever, feel free. So I'm going to make a assignment 2 folder, and then in here I'm just going to name it ref for reference. I'm going to paste this. So if you find some sort of thing that you want to recreate, I would recommend finding that animation on YouTube or another website if you can, and downloading that reference, and then that way you can go through here, and if we open with QuickTime, if I want, I can go through here and I can like freeze frame and go like frame by frame, and I can count how long until it starts to animate in, at what point do I read all the type, sort of thing. And you can change in QuickTime, you can change this little frame number button right here, and you can even line this right up in your Cinema 4D project file if you wanted to. Be super thorough. But I don't expect anyone to recreate anything like perfectly to a T. We're still learning. So for me, I think what I'm just going to focus on right now is I'm going to do a screenshot. So I'm going to open up our friend the snipping tool and move that over there. Click the word new. And so this I'm going to save into my reference folder. So we're back in Cinema 4D. We've got some sort of reference that we've identified that we want to recreate. We kind of have a plan of action, which is good. It's really easy to fall into that kind of blank page trap, that writer's block as an artist, if you just kind of are staring at an empty project file and you don't have some sort of idea or lead, a creative lead to get you going. So I'm going to pull in that image that I just saved, and in order to do that, I'm going to click middle mouse button to go to my front camera, and we can actually bring in that JPEG right into our program here. And what I'm doing is I'm in my front camera, as we can see up here. I just click middle mouse button and now I'm over here. And then I hit the keyboard command Shift V, V as in Victor, and that will bring me to the viewport button over here. And this is my attributes window. I've just resized it because there's a whole bunch of buttons in here. And what I want to do is I want to go, at least for me, if you're using a video reference or a video file as reference, you won't necessarily follow this step, but I'm using a still image for the time being. So I'm going to click the little image, load image button next to image over here, and I'm going to navigate to my folder, assignment 2 reference, and I loaded in that JPEG, and now it's right here in my program, which is pretty handy. Now it's not actually like in the project file. Like we can see that's it's not like an object. There's no object listed. It's basically like tied to this one specific camera. So I guess now what I'm going to start with is I'm going to go up to the MoGraph window up here, and I'm going to click on MoText, because MoText is our friend. And I'm just going to open this attributes up because there's a lot of buttons that we need to look at. I'm going to set it to middle justified text, at least in my case, because I've got a centered logo. And I'm going to try to line up the bottom sort of close. It's not going to be exact, but I'm going to do my best. And then this height value is more or less equivalent to your font size. So I'm just going to shrink that down. And then I'm going to type in the word alien into my text box and then hit enter. Nope. Hit. Enter doesn't do anything, so you just have to click off. Cool. And then I'm going to track this out, not by that, but by the word horizontal spacing. So I'm just going to try to line this up as close as I can. Now I know I don't have the right font face selected, but that's not going to worry me too much for the time being. That looks pretty close. Now there's one thing that I can notice, and that is the fact that my font is a serif based font. And if you really aren't familiar with typographical terms, serifs are these dudes hanging off the side of the eye here. I'm so sorry, Ron. I forgot these words. Unfortunately. So these serif dudes I need to get rid of. So I'm going to select my font, and I'm going to try, just because I'm kind of a Neanderthal when it comes to typefaces, I'm just going to see what Helvetica looks like.
That's a good place to start. That's a very good place to start.
If we've got it.
Oh God. You should.
Doesn't look like we've got it.
No.
So we are going to check our Creative Cloud. Alright, so I'm going to sign in because I'm a Creative Cloud subscriber through my work. I'm going to do this on another monitor. I will not add my phone number. So the benefit of what I'm about to show you, if you are a Creative Cloud subscriber, is the fact that there is a library of fonts for you to pick from. It's called Typekit, sorry. So if this doesn't seem to want to ignore the fact that I don't want to add my phone number. Let's try the web.
Oh yeah, that's always fun. It's like, don't get locked out of your account.
So, this appears to be Adobe Typekit. So we're going to try to sign in over here. Nope, not so much. Bear with me, computers are hard. Here we are, I think I'm in now. Cool, my name. Alright, so what is Typekit? Typekit is a free font library through Adobe that allows you to search stuff. So if I go up to fonts up here, this is what the menu I was looking for. So my font over here is a sans serif. It doesn't have our guys hanging off on the I, so that is a sans serif. So I'm going to enable the sans serif search thing over here. I don't think I need to mess with that stuff over there, so let's see if I can find Helvetica. Alternatives to Helvetica, okay. This looks like a font. Cool, I know the word, I know FF Dagny. So I'm going to, wait a second. There was one thing that I forgot to enable before I searched. Where is this? Web only? No, I don't think it's web only. Some of these will not have a download, so you want to watch out for that. And if I can remember how to find that. If you wanted to, you could use a website like Defont or any of those
Google Fonts is pretty nice too.
websites like that. I've not used Google's font. So let's try this one. See if we can find a download button. So this web use is not what we want, but this sync button, this is what we want. So these all look like condensed weights. I don't want condensed, but we can see how many fonts are in this family. This is pretty hefty over here. So I'm going to click the word sync, and hopefully, if my Creative Cloud app over here does its thing and stops freaking out, let's try closing that. Nope. Alright, today is going real smooth. Creative Cloud. Interesting. Alright, that might be a bust. Okie doke. So this is a super secret way to acquire fonts.
Whoa.
It is legit. As you can see, I just acquired this weight of Helvetica. Feel free to freeze frame that on YouTube to figure out what I just did. So let's see if that shows up, or if I have to restart. The alphabet is hard. Nope. We are just doing real good this lecture. So I'm going to save my file. I might have to restart Cinema 4D. So this will be assignment V2, title, chicken V1. So we're just going to close that. Actually, you know what? While I'm in there, I might grab some other weights. Just so that we've got some other options. Most programs won't realize the fact that you installed a new font to the system while the program's open. It's kind of one of those startup checks, checking, parsing through your font library. So we're just going to go to recent files. All right, cool, we're back. Let's see if we've got some Helvetica to work with.
There it is.
Yeah, cool. So I pretty much just guessed because Helvetica's basically the only font ever used on anything.
Oh.
I think I did pretty okay.
There you go.
So if you were doing a logo, what you would want to do, let me just show you your process there. So let's just say I'm going to do the NFL logo. I'm going to want to go to color, well first tools, and then more or whatever, more tools, something like that. I want to search this transparent button. And this is going to get me a vector file or something that has alpha. And so I could save this logo. So you could do, I don't know, sports team, something else team, dance team, like whatever, run wild with it. So we're just going to save that real quick. So this is a PNG. And what I would want to do here, I would probably want to trace some of these aspects in Illustrator. So if I just opened up Illustrator, I don't need to really open it up. Basically what you would want to do is you would want to draw the blue part, draw that as one layer, and then draw another layer, draw the white here, and then on a third layer you would draw all the red letters. Basically what you would need to do with a logo like this is you would need to break it up and into individual pieces. So that way it would come out, if we full screen this, cool. So you can see these stars and the football and these different layers of the shield here. These are almost kind of like stacked on top of each other. They're like extruded out from each other. So you would want to draw that accordingly. If anyone really wants to do an example like that, I can go find my Marvel Studios logo that I did last semester, and I can walk you guys through that. Maybe I might do that at the end of this lesson, actually, because I can't foresee that everyone is going to wind up with a font that matches so perfectly. This is pretty much completely dumb luck on my part. I will admit that. So what I want to do this one is name this alien text, and then I can just drag a copy, and we're going to make the word covenant now down here. So I'm going to try to line this up somewhat, kind of like that, then type in the word covenant. So obviously this text is a whole bunch smaller, so we need to shrink these down, and then shrink our horizontal width as well. And this might not line up as well. Nope, not perfect. Alright, that's not really that big of a deal. If I wanted to be a stickler, what I could do, and if you've taken your typography course, you will know what the word kerning means. So typically we kern stuff by holding the Alt key and then using like left and right arrow to shift the letters kind of side by side. We can do that same thing here in Cinema 4D. What we want to do is here in the kerning, there's a kerning section with a check mark. You want to turn the check mark on, and then that will enable these little orange handles. And instead of using, I think instead of, I don't use this too much, so how does this work again? I believe you should be able to just shift these letters around, but I think it's moving them all, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see what our plan of attack would be here. I think what I'll do is I'm going to left justify it instead. And I'm just going to start from the first letter and work my way over. So feel free to skip past this part on YouTube if you're watching the lecture after the fact. I can see that I'm not perfect necessarily on my font size, but I think it's good enough that I'm just going to move forward for the sake of our lecture here. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to name this one Covenant Text. So now what? That's a good question. We've got our text here. Cool. But we can see that these letters are pretty fat when it comes to how far they've been extruded. And that is a very easy value to fix. So just right here on our MoText, in our Object tab, there conveniently is a depth button. And its default is 20 centimeters, which is some just arbitrary number. I'm going to shrink that down to something that I think is a little bit more appropriate. Obviously, there's no kind of hard and fast rule when it comes to how thick or how skinny type should be. But I think in this case, because there isn't a ton of perspective necessarily to these words, they don't look like they're too deep. Like, for example, the ESPN logo. This logo has, wow, this is just.
Yeah, it's not working.
No, it's not. The ESPN logo, boy. Come on. We can do it. We can do it. I broke it. Anyway, we can kind of see maybe on some of these other ones, or if you just scroll back in the YouTube video, you can see that the ESPN text had a lot of thickness to it. So a logo like this one, I might want to leave it on 20 or something kind of larger. But in my case, what I think I kind of want to do is I want to make it as deep as it is tall up here. So this is probably telling me it died. Cool. And the thing telling me that it died. So we're just gonna leave Chrome alone for a while. All right. Let's just jump back to this and focus on what we need to focus on. So I'm just gonna shrink these up a bit. I'm just eyeballing it. There's really no precision here. This isn't like an engineering cool story.
Kill it.
Awesome. All right. I should have downloaded that video while I had the opportunity to. Let's just see. Where'd that tab go? We're just going to give this a second to download. Yep. How's everyone's weekend?
Good, pretty good.
Good.
You never know.
So I guess this would be a good time for me to list out the sort of requirements or like what the turn-in, basically what you guys need to know for this assignment. So something in the 3 to 6 second long range, pretty similar kind of to the desk. Again, that is resolution of 960 by 540. We're going to render out our image frame sequence the same way, but as far as the animation, you should have some 3 to 5 or 6 seconds, and like I said, feel free to go longer if your scene requires that. Media encoder. So because I downloaded a full 2-minute long trailer, I don't necessarily need 95% of that. There's about 3 seconds out of that I actually want to actually pay attention to. So I'm just going to use media encoder real quick, hopefully, to trim the length of that video. At least for me, in my opinion, it would be easier to, you know, scroll through this video. You know, if I can pause it. Nope, can't pause it. You know, as opposed to trying to click through like however long this video is. I know I basically just want to like go to the end somewhere, something like this. So if media encoder's open, cool. This is too big for this screen. Today is a struggle. So we're going to drag that over here.
Tuesday's becoming Monday.
Yeah. It's Monday for this computer. Oh boy. It's just taking a dump. It's really
If something could go wrong, it will go wrong.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
So maybe we won't do that. I think I'm just going to leave the animation part of this to Thursday. Hopefully the computer's throwing less of a temper tantrum. So I'm going to jump ahead to the logo portion of this assignment. So if you're listening to this lecture after right now when I'm recording it, if you are just doing text inside Cinema 4D, you can move on with your life. So let's jump into Illustrator. Did I already save that? I did. Okay. Don't do this to me. Okay. Cool. We're just gonna make this bigger. I don't know how big my logo was, but I'm just gonna hopefully guess a number that's larger than it. And I lost. There's my mouse. Cool. So from my reference folder, I'm just gonna pull in my super cool logo. That's definitely trademarked. I don't have the rights to use. And try to center this. Cool. shrink this down so that it fits within my artboard. Alright, find my layers palette. Cool. Alright, so what I usually, this is my workflow when I'm doing this sort of thing in Illustrator, is I'll have my image or whatever, and that'll be sort of the bottom layer, and I'll name that ref. And I typically lock it. So I'm going to name this, because I am familiar with this logo, I know that the NFL's logo is called the Shield, so I'm going to call this blue shield base layer. And you all get to watch me trace something live. So, nah, pen tool's wizardry. I mean, the pen tool is super, super, super important in your life.
I realize that, but it is such a pain in the butt to use.
Yeah, sometimes. So if you're a pro at the pen tool, you can probably skip ahead for a while, because I'm not gonna. Oh boy. I'm not going to be saying a whole lot that's kind of Illustrator specific. I think for the most part we know how to use the pen tool. One thing I do want to do is I want to turn off my stroke and fill colors because I just want to focus on my lines. Hold Alt to break that handle. And you can see that I did that pretty sloppy up there. I guess this is, maybe you've already fast forwarded, but if you haven't, keep listening because I'm about to say something important. And that important part is I usually do one pass around my image or whatever I'm doing that is super awful, just to get like as many points I think as I need in place, just kind of set the groundwork. Yeah, and then I'll go back over, because you're basically wasting your time if you try to make this 100% perfect on the first try, because like, cool, I just tried on this curve right here, but I didn't even center this, so kind of doesn't even matter.
Isn't there some way you can like just trace along the color, given how that it's just probably one color?
Yeah, I could probably live trace this because this is probably, not that I would ever recommend using live trace in my life, but this is probably a candidate that the software could actually live trace, just because it is so stark, and it actually does have an alpha channel. So, but the fact that it has an alpha channel doesn't really matter a whole lot to Cinema 4D or really to Illustrator. In this purpose, when it comes to tracing this logo, because we need it vectorized. It doesn't really matter. If I just brought this JPEG in, Cinema 4D would just be like, cool, I don't really understand what you just tried to do. We basically have to recreate this in Illustrator, and using vectors, which using the pen tool generates vector shapes and vector data. We can then, once we've got this finished, and I'm probably just going to do this blue shield as opposed to doing the whole thing, or maybe I might do like one more part just to show proper procedure if you've got kind of a multi-layer file. Alright, cool. So that the first shape is done. I'm just gonna redo that because I hit the wrong button and now I don't have a handle on that side. So I'm not gonna try I'm not gonna try as hard as you guys should to clean this up. You know, if you were using some sort of branding, you would want to try pretty hard to get this accurate, do good work, because that makes you look better as an artist. You know, that whole bit of logic there. Alright, cool, good enough for me up there. No, sorry, this sucks. If I don't fix this at least somewhat, I'm kind of going to spaz out. Sorry. You know, this stuff kind of takes time, but with this method, basically, you're going to spend most of your time in Illustrator if you're doing this method. A good bulk of your work, you guys might not realize it because we haven't gotten to that step yet, but you are effectively modeling your object right now. So if you think of, if you built like a really complicated chair or some sort of like crazy object in your desk room, it might have taken you 45 minutes to make like one object, or maybe even hours if it was really complicated. So if you got a complicated logo, it would be good to basically spend that time there. So that's my blue shield, and we can just see that there's just one single path in there, and the outline of this path represents the outline here. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this white shield interior, and I'm just going to draw this white part real quick, lock that up. I know this is enthralling to watch. Feel free to hit that 2x speed button, or you've probably already skipped past this, so it's up to you, whatever. Alright, cool. I'm just gonna burn through this. That sucked. Whatever. Just gonna keep going, because time's a wasting. Sweet. Alright, we've got this white shield interior. If I was a professional pro, I would go through and do all the red and do all this white. Cool. Alright, so I've slaved away in Illustrator recreating my logo. I can turn off the reference thing. And I don't even need to like set any of the fill colors. I don't need to do any of that. Basically all I need is just these paths, this information here, this vector data. So what I need to do now is save as, so we want to save this as an Illustrator file to my folder. And we'll just call this NFL Shield AI. Cool. Alright, so we save that, but we can't bring that into Cinema 4D because, of course, life is not easy. There's one more step that we got to do, and the important part, the critical detail here, is we want to rename this. So I'm going to name it AI8, and you will see why. So I'm saving as. I'm not saving over, I'm saving as. So when I click Save here, I get this Illustrator pop-up up here, and you've probably never altered this unless maybe you downsaved a file forever ago. But what I need to select is Illustrator 8. Basically this format was invented in the 90s, and it's super basic, and that's a good thing because we don't have any complicated like gradient mesh or any of that fun stuff. There's not even like clipping masks, any of that. There's none of that fancy stuff. This is just a couple paths. This is all the computer needs, but this Illustrator 8 file is a critical detail. So I can just go through all those. Cool story. Come back to my file. Cool, so I've got an Illustrator 8 file.
You don't need the other one now anymore?
I don't need it, but like, if I wanted to go back and I needed to edit it, if the client was like, oh, well now my football league's the HFL or something, whatever, I could rename it. Because this Illustrator 8 file is not going to retain certain settings. It's just like, it's like one of the first Illustrator files ever made. It's like from forever ago. You can't do a lot of stuff in it, or it'll save a new file, but it'll just mess stuff up. if you're trying to use it as an Illustrator file, but we're not. We're trying to use it as a Cinema 4D file. So I'm just going to hit Control-N to open up a new scene for you guys. And what I need to do is go to File, Merge, because there is no import in Cinema 4D. What you would think of as the import button is File Merge. So I want to select my Illustrator 8 version of this and click Open, and we get a new pop-up. Centimeters is fine. The default for the program's unit scale is centimeters, so we're just going to skip past that. And down to the bottom right, for whatever reason, because it just comes in from over there, I've got my Illustrator 8 file. And we can see that it only came in one path. Today's just one of those days. So I'm just going to zero these position values out to get it back to the center of my project. And now ideally what I would do is I would drop this into a extrude object. There I can find it, holding down Alt, and bam, we just extruded the logo here. So this would be the blue, sort of, maybe. If I turn...
You couldn't draw that in Cinema 4D.
I guess I could. There is a pen tool in here, so if I just hide this, I can go to the spline tool and use the pen tool here. So let me just turn this back on. But the pen tool, although it is fully functional in terms of you can make points, you can edit the Bezier handles, you can break the Bezier handles, you can do everything that you need to that the pen tool, on paper is capable of. But there is a reason that I drew it in Illustrator and not in Cinema 4D. We will use the Cinema 4D pen tool in the next assignment, and we're going to kind of learn how to struggle with it together. But that time will be in a couple weeks. So that's pretty much it. I think in my mind, though, what I would want to slightly alter this file, because at least the way that I'm imagining it in my head is the blue part is kind of the base, and then the white part sits on top of it, and then the red letters sit on top of it. That's just the way that I interpret this logo. Even though it is flat, there is some sort of room for interpretation. I think actually, if YouTube worked, one of these, the NFL animated logo video that you can rewind back to, that actually contradicts my interpretation of the logo, but that's fine. Every artist is going to be kind of different. So what I want to do to break this up so that I've got my different layers, like how I have in Illustrator, I'm going to want to use the split command, which I think some of us have learned as a modeling tool. So basically, I want to break these two splines up because I want to extrude them differently. And to do that, because right now they're combined, I need to split them. So first, what I've got to do is I've got to select this whole shape. Now I could just go through and use my mouse cursor and select all these points. And these are basically my Illustrator. I clicked once and now I'm just dragging.
Okay.
And I'm just painting around. But this is kind of an annoying way to do it. If you've got a really complicated logo, you won't probably want to do that. So what I would do is if you click the first one, we can hit the U button. And much like we've learned the M button is a modeling set of shortcuts, the U button is also one. And we know a couple things on this list. We know, we know optimize. I know that. We might not know too much more, but if you know split, we can see that split is P here towards kind of the middle of the list. So that's a good one. But first, what I've got to do is I've got to select this whole shape. So whether I went through and did all that, once I've got it selected, but the way that I select all of it is by hitting U and then W, which is select connected. And we'll see that that just selected all of that for me. And then now I need to run that split command, which was UP. And that made a copy down here. And I just know out of experience that the bottom one is the split copy. So this is the white shield. And then I can go up here and I can hit my shortcuts again, U, W, U, P, and this will be my blue shield. Oopsies, yeah, good call. Blue shield. Alright, so I can just get that out of here and I'll do my thing where I group it. I name the group old and I turn off the little lights. I just kind of like, that's sort of my storage bin, like I might need it later kind of thing. So I'm gonna ungroup those. I can just delete that one. So now I've got my blue shield line and my white shield line. Basically I'm just gonna drop each of these into an extrude object themselves. And so now I've got this white and blue, and I'm going to pull the white one forward ever so much, and I'm actually going to thicken these. So when we were using the MoText example over here, we were altering the depth value, and that was altering how thick backwards the text was. So when you're using the MoText object, that value is called depth. But when you're using the extrude object, that value is actually your Z movement value. So if I turn on my line mode so that we can see these lines, we can see that as I alter this movement, and this is corresponding to X, Y, and Z, kind of like our, our normal position coordinates, we can see as I alter this Z value that these are thickening. So, the way that I'm interpreting the logo might be a little bit more something like this. Everyone's going to kind of have a different, kind of art style, a different piece, of reference that they're recreating. So, everyone's is going to look a little different or a lot different. It's kind of up to you.
If you wanted that in with the letters on top of it, would you just, can you do that so it looks like it's recessed?
I could. That would be a little bit different of a
Harder?
process. I don't want to say harder. In that case, what I would do, and just to reiterate the question on the microphone, is how would I do it so that it was recessed, sort of like how that first YouTube video looked. So in that case, I would bring this one back out, which was my original. And this, when we extrude this has an area for the recessed part. I'm not exactly sure why, it just kind of worked out this way in this example, that this is almost like the Pathfinder function in Illustrator. You can use one shape to knock out another shape. So then what I could do here, I've got that shape, so this is the full shape, and then I would want to duplicate the white shape. So this one back here is, and then I could pull this back in this way. So this would be a way to do it with a recession, kind of an extruded part inwards. And then, if I wanted, I could type NFL here and put the stars and all that fun stuff out there. So yeah, there's a couple different ways to use this Illustrator 8 to Cinema 4D, kind of workflow, and that'll conclude today's lecture.
If it was a circle
Mm-hmm.
and you extrude it, would it just be a square, right?
No, it wouldn't. So I can recreate that. So the question is if you had a circle and you extruded it, would it be a sphere or would it be flat? And that question is that it would be flat. So what I just did is I just used the preset, much like we have the cubes and all these primitive cubes and all this good stuff. We've got spline versions of these. This is where we find the pen tool. So I just quickly made a circle and I dropped that into an extrude. And so, yeah, you can see here that this is just flat. This is basically, this is no different than a cylinder. If I made a cylinder this way and this is,
What if you had a logo with like some like half sphere on it? How would you?
a logo on a half sphere. Well, it would require having some sort of a little bit more detail than I've got kind of on me as a file, but actually I think what I can just do, so I can do the text right here, so I'm just gonna, if it cooperates, type in the word logo, because the word logo makes for a cool logo. Alright, so let's just pretend that this is my logo in your example. That is circle, extrude, logo. Alright, let's just say that this is our logo, right? And if you wanted to kind of warp this to get this to look like it was like a hemisphere, or like a globe or something, what you could do, possibly, I'm literally just trying this, who knows if this will work or not. There are deformers that we can use, so we're going to try to use the bend deformer currently, and we'll just see if this works. So I've got to put the bend deformer in my logo group, and that's bending on a weird axis. This is looking real good. Damn. This is sick. So you could play around with the effectors like this. If you had a specific example and you had your asset ready, this would be something that I'd probably want to work with you, like a one-on-one kind of thing. Because I know why this isn't working. It's kind of above the scope of this lecture right now to fix this. So yeah, that'll conclude today's recording.